What's going on, Canes fans? Peter Ariz here with another edition of the Canes Insight podcast. If you have not checked out D Money and I's instant reaction podcast to the win over Temple, that's up on the YouTube page and everywhere else that you get our podcasts. It's a bye week, but we will still be bringing you the content all week on CanesInsight.com. Tonight, have a very special guest, Nic Echevarria, also known as WestEndZone on the Canes Insight website and the forums. If you're not signed up there, go check it out. It's free. Canes Talk 24/7, 365, 6.5 million posts on the website. Again, completely free website. I know a lot of you check out the social media pages as well, but the forums, the eye in the sky, and the recruiting board are the place to be if you are a Canes football junkie. CanesInsight.com. Tonight, we'll be getting into a breakdown of Lance Guidry's defense. He's been running a 4-2-5 scheme essentially here at Miami, which obviously at his other stops has run a lot of similar things as well. But Nic is a guy who's been calling for the Canes to use a variation of this for years on the website. Very knowledgeable poster, played the game, played in college, has coached as well. So get in depth with him, about 30-minute interview. Hope you guys enjoy it. Keep it locked on the website all week. D Money will be probably bringing you a recruiting update with the bank as we do every week on CanesInsight.com. Keep it locked for the player and coach interviews. I know it's a bye week, but we should have some content there as well. Appreciate everyone's support. Like this video, subscribe, enjoy the interview. Talking about Lance Guidry's defense, breaking it all down. Been a very successful group. Go Canes. All right, Canes fans, very excited about this next guest here on the Canes Insight podcast. Some of you may know him as WestEndZone on the Canes Insight website, but this is Nic Echevarria, who, give you a little background in terms of his football, knowledge and his football pedigree. Played at Belen Jesuit High School, played linebacker, occasional fullback, all-county team, played at Catholic University under now Columbus head coach Dave Dunn. Also coached at Belen for 4 or 5 years on the defensive side of the football, and including that state runner-up team that had a remarkable run, beating Booker T, Norland, Northwestern. So excited to have this guy, Nic, on the podcast tonight. Nic, appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It's my first time ever doing something like this, and so I should probably apologize in advance to your listeners. It's probably the first time that you ever had a stutterer on the podcast.
No, man. Listen, your content has always been top notch on the website, and just another one of the very talented posters on the Canes Insight website. And for those of you who have not seen Nic's post that he actually made today on Tuesday afternoon here, Lance Guidry's multiple nickel defense, going through kind of the ins and outs of what he does with this. Anyone who's been following Nic, again, WestEndZone on the Canes Insight website for the longest time, you've been a proponent of the 4-2-5 defense, which is essentially what we are seeing now with Lance Guidry. And your post today kind of broke down a lot of the things that the fan who just watches on TV and roots for the Canes doesn't necessarily understand a lot of the things that are going on schematically. So wanted to have you on tonight to kind of go through it. And really the theme of what this defense has been, Nic, is it's a multiple scheme, right? So they've had the ability to match up. Again, only 4 games in here, but you could really match up with a lot of different personnel packages on the offensive side of the football.
Right. So just speaking about base defense, right? Just speaking about nickel personnel, 5 DBs, 2 linebackers, 4 defensive linemen. I kind of came up in this 4-2-5 system, coach safeties. We learned it from Gary Patterson himself. Had a kind of a Division III coach come down to our school and kind of give us like a run through of it. And like I finished playing D3 football with Coach Dunn, and I get back and I coached. And then after that, sort of like the party was over for me. I didn't really have an outlet for football. Found CanesInsight, started making these posts about the 425 and how it works. And the thing really that got me about the 425 is it kind of allows you to, keep like a sectional defense where your front can be something and your backside can be something completely different. And you teach every position group maybe like 8 to 10 different terms, and they don't have to learn a whole defense, right? And so that's what you're seeing here with Coach Guidry is he kind of pulls from that TCU method where they take advantage of the spacing in the field, right? So like in my posts, the average fan may not know something like this, but the hash marks in college are about 40 yards, whereas in the NFL is about 18 point something. And so you get sides of the field that are very small and sides of the field that are very large. And so at TCU, what they did is they basically designated pre-alignment rules by field and boundaries. So there's a field safety who's kind of like a nickel, kind of like a Sam linebacker. A guy like number 22 for us is kind of perfect for that, right? Where he's a football player. He kind of knows, he kind of has like the instincts of a linebacker, small guy, but tough as nails. That's really what you need there. Then the flip side to that is a boundary safety, which is like the perfect spot for a guy like James Williams, right? That's to do everything position. That's the guy that can play deep in a condensed field, so it's less space. A guy that's maybe doesn't have the fluidity as good as like a Cam Kinchins. That guy can play deep on a short field. And then also he can come back down, right? That's the guy that's the true hybrid that can come down to the box, play on the edge like a D gap player, play like a traditional outside linebacker, can also scoot in, play more like a B gap also. So he's taken that TCU concept and sort of furthered it, right? So he goes farther than that. He will have a field. I mean, based off this is based off of what I see from from the games. I can kind of I kind of joke with my dad who goes to the games and be like, I can't just watch the games like a fan. Like I'm trying to figure everything out. And something that I figured out is we always have the ability. Somebody check if I'm wrong, but so far based off what I've seen, we always have the ability to drop 8. And one way he does that is he designates a field and boundary end. So that boundary end, again, to the short side of the field, covering less ground, is your more athletic guys, right? A guy like Nigel Kelly, a guy like Jafari Harvey. Yeah, those are the guys that are going to play to the boundary. And then, at times playing coverage, obviously we've been sort of torched in that a few times so far. And then to the field, you have guys playing to their strength, right? So guy like Bain, Mesidor playing to the field, where a guy that's playing more of a traditional 5 technique, a guy that's going to stop a run. And so because of that, he's very easily able to switch into sort of odd fronts, play he plays bear out of nickel personnel. Pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and that has to be tough on an offensive coordinator and on an opposing quarterback, right? These aren't the conventional looks you see. Maybe in the NFL there's a lot of coordinators who are doing stuff like this, but at the college level, right, to be able to, like you said, show a bare front, but on the backside show something completely different. that has to mess with the mind of a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean it's just something that I don't think teams do that often, and if they do, it it's kind of janky. And you know, I kind of wanted to talk today, like, before getting into all this scheme stuff, just kind of looking at Coach Guidry and doing the research on him and seeing his past teams play. He's not really a guy that wants to blitz. He's not a guy that just is constantly sending pressure because that's just what he does. Yes, he has blitz packages like every other team does. But it seems like, just based off of his comments, preseason and things like that, where, he wants to call the plays that his guys are comfortable with. And it seems like, the guys we have want to blitz, they feel good doing it, and so, what's the best way to do that, right? So two things: you have defensive linemen, probably not the biggest guys. We heard all the talk preseason, a guy like Josh Pate talking about how, that we can't stop the run, that we have good sort of pass rushers, things like that. It kind of makes sense what Guidry's doing, right? He's gonna, line up in an odd front, not give a clear tell where the pressure is coming from, and just be constantly moving. So you see us pre-aligning an even front, shifting to an odd front, and vice versa, and then bringing pressure. That's because that's what the guys want to do. And so if they're comfortable and the play call and they're getting aligned properly, then that lets them do what defenses have to do. Like number 1, 2, and 3 always are, A, know your job, do your job. Okay. B, run to the ball, and 3, hit. Like, those are, if you do those things, you're probably going to be pretty good. And so what Guidry is doing, in my opinion, is like, look, maybe down a distance or, game plan or whatever, maybe the best thing theoretically is to blitz, but he's going to blitz more. That's a good play call because his guys like doing it, right?
Just looking at this roster, I'm curious, and I think this is a question that a lot of Canes fans might have also. The defense has had a lot of success, obviously, in that Texas A&M game in the second half. Things opened up a little bit, but how much of what we're seeing right now is Coach Guidry doing an amazing job of using what he has, putting guys in the right position to make plays? Obviously there's a lot of talent on this defense, but I mean, how much is Coach Guidry missing to really be able to unlock this defense and make it a true force moving forward? I mean, there was people before the season, a lot of fans were concerned with, you don't have a 320-pound plus defensive lineman there, but that may not be what this defense calls for, right? I mean, looking at the personnel right now, moving forward, what would you like to see to really make this thing a tough thing?
Yeah, I mean, probably depth. That's the main thing. I think. I think we were already pretty thin. Like at linebacker. Yes, there's a bunch of guys in there. 4-star guys that came in. They're still young. Playing linebacker young is really hard to do. Like the thing that Shaq did for us all those years ago is not normal. Same thing goes for safety. And I was talking with D Money at Titanic. It was a great time. Super packed house. We were sitting there by the bar talking about James Williams, and a guy like him kind of gets, kind of killed, right, by the fans, just because he's a guy, true freshman, playing safety. All right, and I kind of touch on this on the post where it's difficult. It's difficult to even get lined up, like to A, just know your job, and B, just to get lined up properly and just do your job. Being that young is difficult. So, it's really just depth, right? So Kinchins, James Williams are, really, and doesn't get much better than that. And then I just don't know what we have coming up next, right? And do I see another Cam Kinchens on the team? Probably not. But probably with the portal, I think, seeing a guy come in like number 22, right? That's a guy that, to be honest with you, I don't know where the defense would be if we didn't have him. He's he's one guy, but he can play everywhere.
Right. And that's what I think they're hoping. Jadis Richard, who came in from Vanderbilt, there was a lot of talk about him.
Yeah.
Damari Brown as well. You see him playing that nickel spot. You see the physicality that he brings.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, 22, Jaden Davis has played a lot of football. I think that definitely has helped, with him being able to be a plug and play guy and be perfect for this defense. But without a doubt, again, this has been a masterful job by Coach Guidry, taking what he has, right? And it's not, you have a lot of different guys in new spots, but at the foundation of this thing, it's a lot of the similar faces. You lose really two corners that are playing in the NFL right now, one of them being a second round pick in Tyreek Stevenson, the other one and DJ Ivey, who's on that 53-man roster. So you did lose talent in important places, but you were able to replace it with guys who just might be more tailor-made for this system.
Well, yeah, I kind of going back to the first thing I said, right? Like, knowing your job, doing your job, just, it's like, it's a matter of effort. Those first three things that I mentioned all tie to effort. And I just think there was something terribly wrong with the team last year. I think you can take it and just throw it out the window. A guy like Guidry comes in, it seems like the guys like him, and I really can't emphasize enough how important mentality is on defense. And I think if you don't have that, you have nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and I can tell you, obviously, knowing what's going on in there the last few years, there hasn't been, that trust. And it's just, you see what he's done in his previous stops, right? And I think it's very easy for these guys to have looked at what he did with talent that wasn't anywhere near what Miami has. And again, he's putting guys in positions to make plays. I want to ask you about the linebacker group because we have not talked about them very much. How much of an upgrade has that group been in terms of athletic ability and how important is it to have those guys doing what they're doing in the scheme?
So it's kind of like from 1 year to the next, you kind of like flipped everything, right? Where a guy like 31's on the field, like he's a year older, he's still skinny as hell. But again, linebackers similar to safety, where if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be a huge problem. And there's going to be huge mess ups, right? And so going to 51 Maui Goa, I mean, to me, he's the best linebacker we've had dating back before Shaq, because he's so physically gifted. He can run. Like he's smart. He's super tough, and so like that's your traditional Mike that we just lacked for 3-4 years, and then the guys that are playing a ton for us are doing what they should be doing, playing special teams, providing depth, and so when Maui Goa goes, I'm not sure who's going to go in there, and then something that I wanted to sort of touch on the post is I feel like Guidry wants to turn one of those positions into kind of like sort of being able to like play on the edge sometimes, right? Where that weak side linebacker who plays to the boundary, on like a 2x2 formation is the guy that can cover, can fill B gap. Not a traditional Mike, but a guy that can kind of come off the edge. That's what you see a lot with number 31 and number 23. Similar body types, kind of like bigger, longer guys, kind of rangy. And then then you see more of the traditional Mikes playing the strong side.
And I think there's a good chance that we get Malagoa back for another season. So I mean that would be awesome with obviously the continued development of some of these other guys.
He's a former quarterback, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what you need to do well on the defense. If you don't have that with a smart free safety, it's going to be tough sledding.
And I mean, look, let's also give a shout out to a guy like Corey Flagg, who, Canes fans, haven't exactly been excited with him being the starting linebacker a majority of the last 3-4 years, but is playing an awesome role for this team, has played a ton of football, and you need guys like that on the rotation. So it's great to see him coming on.
Yeah, that's a guy that I actually am a huge fan. You know what I mean? Like that's a guy that probably didn't have all the skills physically coming out, a bit overweight, just doesn't fit all the measurables, but kind of has everything else. And like I'm not in the program, I don't see much, but from what I can glean, that's a guy that's always working, constantly watching film, super tough guy, and that's the kind of guy we need in the thick of it. I just think a guy like Malagoa is just a clear step up.
Yeah. I had a question about the defensive line. Before the Temple game, there was some concern, I guess you could say, about the lack of sack production, sack numbers from that group. Is this, something that you're concerned with? Obviously, they had a good showing against Temple, but is that just winning one-on-one battles with the opposing offensive line? Is it the guys just they don't have the guys that they need right now? Guys developing. Where do you see that kind of going this season?
I mean, for one, we got pretty banged up pretty quick. Like probably our two best edge guys were out. I've been out for about 2 games, right? And sometimes it's a situation where maybe you don't get the sacks, but you get the pressures, and then a game down the road you get less pressures but more sacks. It's just kind of like a weird statistical thing that could sort of even out. I do think though it's pretty clear Guidry's trying to manufacture pressure, right? Like he's trying to like bring four in weird ways, and I think he knows. Just because I don't think it's part of his character to sort of bring pressure a lot, and it just seems like he knows it's an issue, and he's doing something to kind of manufacture something that isn't there.
Obviously, they're trying to bring in the 5-star type kids now on the defensive line in this recruiting class. So definitely, you already know that that's going to be Mario's big pitches. What it was last year with the offensive line is you're going to have an opportunity to come in and make an impact immediately.
Yeah, I mean, if you have like a bunch of 5-star DNs, then it gives even more of a genius, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, once you that was kind of my question earlier, right? Is once you get some of these, you mentioned a James Williams who's perfect for the boundary safety spot he's playing. You mentioned a Cam Kitchens being, a top 3 player at his position, in the country, right? Imagine once he starts to be able to fill in some of these other spots with cyborgs, right? And I think that's what they're trending towards 100%.
Yeah, and like it's a little bit, kind of frustrating, right? Where so all these years that we didn't have Mario, we had like a ton of great DNs, right? And then all of a sudden we got like really 1 or 2 prototypical guys right now in Nigel Lee Kelly, and the freshman. I think it's number
Jaden Wayne.
right, him.
Yeah.
And so
18, yeah.
those guys look like the typical, prototypical guys. They're still young. And the issue always was defensive tackle. And I mean, frankly, I think it's always going to be an issue. That's like one position that's very expensive.
Yeah, and South Florida doesn't always produce the best interior linemen either. Obviously, you have guys that come out every few years, but that's not a strong suit down here in South Florida.
Yeah, and just kind of thinking how this team has changed, right? What's changed the most? I mean, I think we've spoken about it. It's sort of trusting the coaches and just having better team chemistry, I guess, right? But but also looking at the offensive line, right? Just Mario already addressed that. Yes, they need more depth and things like that. That's very clearly been addressed, and you see it, right? Like you play a team like Texas A&M, and it's almost like after watching that, I feel like we can play against whoever, right? Because in the best seasons that we've had in the last 10 years, 2017, yeah, we won 10 games, whatever it was. We play our first team with a real D line, and we have no chance, right? It's not even a game. I think all the other things will sort of work itself out if we can find a quarterback, if we can, keep stacking these guys in the offensive line, get more D linemen. I think we can play with anybody.
Nick, before I let you go, I know you watch college football and you watch the ACC, and you're familiar with a lot of these teams Miami's going to be facing, right? So anything, the North Carolinas of the world, the Florida States, the Clemsons, right? And you kind of just alluded to it. You feel like Miami, when they're clicking on all cylinders, can really play with anybody right now. How are those matchups looking from what you've seen? Obviously, North Carolina with Drake May, looks like a top 5 pick. Clemson is not the same Clemson, but they still have that Clemson aura to them, and Florida State doing what they're doing this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not, for a reason, don't ever bet on the Canes. That's because I'm kind of like kind of biased. I think that that we can beat all of them. But really, really, I think we'll be favored against Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State. They're kind of a weird team, right? Where you see them really beat up on people, impose themselves in the run game. I do think it's a good matchup, and I think that there's still sort of like a little bit of a sloppy team, but definitely their run game against our defensive line is something I'm concerned about. But I do think that we will score points.
Yeah, no, definitely. And listen, they have the thing about FSU is they have a good amount of NFL talent in important positions over there right now. So it's going to be a good battle. We'll see what both teams are at that point of the season. But obviously, Canes have the bye week this week. Need to get healthy, like you said. I mean, they've been missing some important guys here: Nigel Lee Kelly, Branson Dean, Akeem Mesidor, right? Cam Kitchens, and we're hopeful that all these guys get back as soon as possible. But once you can get back to as close as you can get to 100% health, it'll go a long way, because that's the biggest thing right now defensively is probably the lack of depth in some of these spots. I mean, you're pretty close in a couple spots. If another guy or two goes down, you're kind of out of luck there. So
yeah. I definitely agree. Just thinking about it, defensive line, safety, corner are all kind of
they're teetering.
Right yeah, they're right there. Yeah. But man. Thanks for having me on. I stayed late at work. Here at the Echevarria law firm. This is my law firm. A quick 5-second plug. If you guys have any issues with any insurance claims in your house, let me know, and we'll make the insurance company pay by force.
Well, none of that stuff happens in South Florida, so
there's never any hurricanes down here, right?
Exactly. Nic Echevarria, also known as WestEndZone on the CanesInsight.com forums. I'm sure he'll be posting great content the rest of the season. It's been fun to get a lot of the Canes Insight community involved. Lance Roffers comes on with his analytical look. Nick coming on now with his X's and O's look on the defense side of the ball. We got Steve Kim with his historical analysis. Steve-O. So we got a great team here. Brad Tejeda on the recruiting side. We're going to keep bringing this to you the rest of the season. Canes Insight family, appreciate you once again, Nick, for joining the show tonight.